All right, Robert, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. So, for the viewers and listeners out there, this guy was a problem on the NFL field. He was a menace for opposing defenses. This guy was a Pro Bowler, four-time 1,000-yard rusher. The guy was great. I was a fan back then. Unfortunately, his career was cut short, but man, what a career. So, Robert, welcome to the show. Tell us about like when you found out that you had to cut the career short. What happened? What was going on?
Yeah, so when I was a rookie, I tore my ACL, but also broke the bottom of femur, the thigh bone. So there was a crack there, and there's some cartilage that actually is on the bone that was damaged during that injury. And it kind of deteriorated throughout the rest of my career. And in my last season, it was the only season that I didn't miss any games. And I still needed knee surgery after the year, but it really wasn't, I had to retire. I just thought it made more sense to retire at that point. The thing I said was, it's better to walk away early than limp away late.
Yeah.
And if you don't miss any games and you still need knee surgery after you've already had a number of knee surgeries, maybe the game's not worth suiting up for anymore.
That's incredible, man. Like, how did they keep you together? How did the training staff all those years? You were battling these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like it was a severe deterrent, early in my career or
Yeah.
hindrance. So what happens is when that surface gets damaged, they do a procedure called a microfracture, where they
Mm.
actually tap the surface and try and regrow some cartilage. There probably some things now
Right.
that I could try. Whether the PRP, which is the platelet replacement therapy. They have some different things that they do with stem cells. Maybe not here in the United States. I know in Germany they do a lot of this stuff
Right.
that I might have tried to kind of help with the lubrication in the joint. But it's not like I came back and my knee was aching. So I had that first surgery in '93. I needed another one, I think, in '97 or '98 on that knee, just to kind of help with that articular, that's called the articular surface on the bone there.
Yeah.
And then I did another one after the 2000 season. And in the interim, like a little piece would break off every now and then, get caught in the joint and cause some issues. But it was really it really didn't it really didn't deter the function so much. It would just
Wow.
cause flare from time to time.
My goodness, man. You know what? Being a fan, NFL fan at the time, you would have never known. Like, you were just tearing it up on the field. So, my goodness. So, all right. So, Robert, let's talk about post NFL life. What's been going on there? Maybe there are people out there who want to know what's been up with Robert Smith.
When I was at Ohio State, I originally thought I wanted to go to medical school. I had to take all the biology, chemistry, physics, and calculus, all the fun stuff.
Oh my God.
But my major was in history, so I took all those pre-med classes that didn't count towards my major. But I always knew that I wanted to be involved with medicine, even after I got to Ohio State, finding out that I didn't want to practice medicine. I had a chance to work in a hematology oncology lab doing cloning and sequencing of genes. So I started to learn about personalized medicine and individualized medicine. And so when I left or right before I left the game, I started working with a company, and this is right at the beginnings of e-commerce with the internet in the late '90s.
Mm.
A company that was doing some things with durable medical equipment, home medical equipment, some claims analytics, meaning you're looking at pharmacy claims, seeing gaps in pharmacy claims and how that might lead to medical claims down the road, basically trying to find different ways to control costs
Right.
by identifying trends and doing some predictive analytics in claims analysis. But really, the company never really produced usable software. So I
Mm.
always knew they wanted to do something with sports, and felt that there was a way to use athletes to kind of deliver the message of health and wellness. So I started my own company in the space, and We've kind of gone through a couple of different iterations, but excited about where we are now. We've got some content deployed with United Health Optum. But we're looking at some consumer initiatives that I can't go into details about right now that
Sure.
are pretty exciting. And if you don't hear about them, in the next few months, then I haven't done my job.
Wow. Did you ever see, Robert, when you were going through your football journey, that you would even tap this area of your life, medicine, e-commerce? Did you ever predict this? Like, ever see that for yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, I
Oh, okay.
actually I'd be. I mean, I didn't know what shape it would take because I didn't know what I didn't really know where things were going, and I don't think really many people knew where things were going with the internet and just kind of how whether you're talking about streaming or the way that phones and apps have developed. I mean, it was and it seems like we've had them forever, but it's only been about 12 years that that the apps have really been around, uh, you know, in uh, in a large scale form. So I didn't know that it would take that form. I just knew that somewhere in and around applied science and medicine in particular, that I wanted to do something at the population level. I just didn't know what form it would take.
Robert, you're one of the lucky ones, man. There's a lot of professional athletes. Once they're done, their career is done, they're done. They don't evolve because that was their identity, right? So many stories. So for you, like you didn't go down that path. What makes you different from the other guy that all they had was being an athlete?
Well, I mean, you can't you can generalize, but you shouldn't generalize, right?
Sure.
Like, there are people in a lot of industries, I think, in a lot of sports, in particular, where the career is kind of on the front end, and then there's a long tail after that, as opposed to people that are going to school and kind of developing a career over time. What makes me different? I guess I wouldn't say again that it's that different because I think most people become ex-athletes, before they ever really do anything at any high level.
Mhm.
But I just always knew it could end. My mother was a registered nurse and spent a lot of time around hospitals. And as I said, and looking at going into medical school, just kind of learning about orthopedic injuries and a number of other conditions that can develop, especially in contact sports. You just always knew it was day to day.
Yeah,
You didn't know when that last day would come, but for most people, it comes sooner than they hope. And I consider myself fortunate that I left the game on my terms.
absolutely. So with that mindset throughout your career, were you like, I'm just going to enjoy this for as long as possible?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean,
Yeah.
nobody has anything promised to them in the game, right? So,
Mhm.
I tore my ACL my rookie season, tore my MCL, PCL in my fourth season, and
Ugh.
in between had a pretty serious ankle injury. Was relatively healthy the last 4 years of my career,
Yep.
but threw in like a double hernia and multiple elbow surgeries in the interim. And you just know it as a player because you see guys come in and out of the locker room, and some of the stories are more severe than others, and you hate to see those, but you know that they're a part of the game.
Absolutely. All right, so Robert, let's dig a little deeper in regards to like your football journey. Like you're talking about Ohio State. So talk about getting drafted. Draft day. What were you doing? What were you feeling? What was going on?
Yeah, so draft day is interesting, and I was in the middle of the track season at that time, and we were at the Penn Relays the day before. It's a big track meet. It's a multi-school invitational with some professional level track athletes as well. And I flew home the night before the draft, and just all kinds of nerves. And I remember getting up that morning and going to Bob Evans, which is the Midwest Ohio restaurant that and I remember having my breakfast in front of me, barely able to eat. Um, and I think the draft started around noon Eastern, and it took like 3 hours for me to get drafted, even though I was drafted 21st overall, right? So, the first round just takes forever. And back in that day, I still didn't have a cell phone. So this is April of '93.
Hmm.
And I remember getting a couple of calls during the draft that weren't, a team. And it's like, come on, I told you, not to have, because I had roommates. Like, come on, don't have anybody call right now. It's nerve wracking. Uh, and I remember well, first I was watching Ren and Stimpy when I got drafted, because I was tired of watching the draft and it was nerve wracking. And I thought maybe some teams around 14 or 15 would pick me. And then I didn't think anybody until like around 25 would pick. So to calm my nerves, I turned over to Ren and Stimpy, which was on
Nice.
MTV at the time. So yeah, I'm watching that. My football agent calls me up and he thought it would be funny if I was in the shower when I got drafted. So he's like, yeah, because he knew I was about to get drafted and he called me up and he's like, yeah, you should go take a shower because that can help relax you and stuff like that. So he tried to sabotage me, but I didn't feel like jumping in the shower. And Denny Green was on the other end of the line, who was my coach with the Vikings all 8 years. And I had met Denny the year before because I was considering transferring from Ohio State, and he was out at Stanford. So I went out and visited him at that time. He left the next year to go and coach the Vikings, and I went back for my last year at Ohio State. But he called me up on draft day and he said, "I let you get away once. I'm not going to let it happen again."
Love it. Love it.
After that, I remember, memory is so closely tied with emotions, and the more powerful the memory or emotion, the stronger the memory imprints. And I
Yeah.
remember driving to the airport, um, and hearing Lenny Kravitz, "Believe" on the 6 CD changer that was in the trunk.
My
Uh,
gosh.
yeah, and a little drizzle on the way to the airport, and I remember flying up to Minneapolis and getting in there and meeting with the coaches, and it just an incredible. It's a whirlwind. These are things when you're a kid. I'm playing around in my Pittsburgh Steeler pajamas as a kid, and we're always pretending to be different players when we're playing the game, and then all of a sudden it's a reality, and it's it's a pretty incredible feeling. It's hard to describe, uh, being taken in a position like this where just by doing the job you're considered one of the best in the world, even if you don't make the team. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing, man. I can only imagine. Were there a lot of media opportunities for you, like leading up to the draft, or people like trying to get a hold of you, talk to you, kind of thing?
There were some calls. Nothing major for me. I think there was a lot of uncertainty about where I was going to be drafted.
Right.
There were people that didn't think I was going to get drafted until the second or third round, which would have been fine with me. But
Yeah.
ended up going in the first round. But it's not like I was a guy that they called up and said, "Hey, will you come to the draft and hang out in the draft room and things like that?"
Right,
So
right.
it wasn't too intense, and it was a lot different then when you didn't have cell phones.
Hmm.
So it got some calls here and there, but nothing too bad.
Imagine, Robert, you were playing today, social media, phones, tablets, everything. Imagine that. What would life be like? Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to imagine, and I think it's just like anything else. You kind of have to understand how much of it you're willing to put up with. It's just like when you're a player and you go places and people are coming up to you, like it's a compliment, right? That
Mhm.
that people recognize you and appreciate what you do, but at the same time, you got to be in the right mental space to uh, be able to handle that attention. So if you're not, then you shouldn't be going to that place. And same with the social media. And
Mhm.
the thing about social media that makes it different than people coming up and talking to you, it's like it's literally desperate. So many desperate people that just want to get attention and they want to get some sort of response for you. They're desperate to get that response, so they'll literally say anything to you. And it just is what it is. I think I would probably filter, certainly limit my activity in social media. I've kind of had some of that.
Right.
Especially when I was at ESPN, it was pretty hot,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's calmed down a lot over the years. Conversations aren't nearly as contentious as they once were.
Right.
Not even conversations anymore, because if somebody's talking that stuff now, I mean, I'm not giving them the time of the day.
Right. I know about you. Robert, you strike me as a very mature guy. You probably were mature beyond your years.
I am 52, so
Well, yeah, yeah. I meant like when you were younger, like you strike me as like you were probably mature beyond your years. So if social media was in the equation, I got a feeling that you would have been able to handle it.
yeah. I mean, again, some way or another, you try and find what works best for you, and if you find that it's interfering with your job, or certainly your mental health,
Yeah,
as they say, if it costs you your mental health, then it's too expensive.
absolutely. All right. So sticking with the football journey, you're drafted. It's great. Talk about putting on the uniform, talking about playing that first game. I'm sure the memory is quite vivid.
Yeah, well, there are two first games, I guess.
Okay.
The first game is the first time that you're ever suited up and playing with that uniform, and that's in the preseason. And that was actually, I live in the Dallas area, and that was down here in the stadium in Irving that's not even there anymore. And that, the first time you do it, it's just incredible. People talk about the game slowing down. Well, the first time that you're playing it, it's just so fast and it's a whirlwind, and you have trouble kind of adapting to it or thinking that you're going to be able to. But uh, that kind of transitions pretty quickly. The
Right.
next game we played was in Berlin, and having some German Polish heritage and speaking German, like
Nice.
it was a cool experience. And being a history major, we're literally practicing where Hitler marched his troops in front of Olympic
Wow.
Stadium. Jesse Owens had won 4 gold medals in 1936. So it was an incredible experience. But then the first real game, regular season game, was in LA Coliseum, where I had seen, 9 years or 11, or yeah, no, 9 years earlier, had seen the '84 Summer Olympics with Carl Lewis winning 4 gold medals. So, I mean, it's incredible uh, what it feels like to go out there and do it for the first time. Um, but it's like anything else, you get used to it, and the game slows down, and you start to understand your position a little bit better, and start to understand the positions around you and what the team's trying to accomplish on certain plays, and that's when it really gets fun, because you just feel a lot more comfortable in your element.
Absolutely. Did you have like a welcome to the NFL moment? Was there a guy like on the opposing team? Hey, Rook, I got you, or something? Did you have that
Well,
moment?
well, the welcome to the NFL moment actually was, yeah, again, I said it, during the season, or I was in the track season. So when I got drafted, though, there's a mandatory mini camp right after the draft. And, I was in my first team meeting, and, you have the offense on one side of the meeting and defense on the other side of the meeting. And I'm sitting in the meeting next to Roger Craig, who
Wow.
I've grown up admiring. And I just like, this is just unbelievable. Like, I'm sitting next to Roger Craig in a meeting, and we're playing the same position. And I'm trying to make sure that he doesn't see much of the field, quite frankly, right? Like, and it's pretty amazing. And then you get into games, and like Howie Long was playing for the Raiders in that first game that I played in the regular season, and seeing him, and then throughout the season in the first couple of years, you run into guys
Yeah.
and you just like you're awestruck, like I saw Ronnie Lott and meeting Emmett Smith and Barry Sanders and playing against all these incredible players. It's pretty crazy. And when you watch them when you're a kid, like it's like there's no defense against fandom. You know what I mean? The kid fandom. I mean,
Yeah.
I just met Ragib Ishmael Rocket like 2 weeks ago,
Really?
and he, and his brother got drafted the same draft I did up in Minnesota. So
Yeah.
Kadri and I were close and good friends, and knew him really well. But I just had never met Rocket, and I met him a couple of weeks ago, and I was like a little kid, like because
Uh,
when I was a sophomore in high school, and junior in high school, he was tearing it up at Notre Dame.
that's right.
And it's kind of funny how that instinct just kind of kicks in, even as a 52-year-old man.
No kidding. All right. So when you're playing, right, you're seeing all your heroes. You're talking about all these guys you revered. At what moment did you think, you know what? I can hang with these guys. I can play in this league. Was there like a seminal moment, a game where you thought, you know what? I belong.
Well, I mean, it was really the first practice
Okay.
when I got up to Minnesota, even though it was in shorts. I could just tell. I mean, you can feel the way that you're moving in relation to other people, and as an offensive player in particular, that's your advantage, right? Like if you're trying to make people miss, you can do it a number of ways. You can shake them, you can run by them, or you can run through them. And I could tell that with my speed compared to those other players, that I at least have a shot.
For sure. So talk about like game day. Talk about day in the life. Robert Smith getting ready for a game day. What's the routine? What are you eating? Are you taking a nap? What's going on?
Well, I mean, it depends on when the game is.
Okay.
So if it's a morning game, you're not taking a nap, just kind of getting up and going. Go and get the breakfast. We would normally get to the stadium a few hours before the game. And we'd have a good stretching routine and relax. And it's funny, early in the career, the music was usually loud and fast and violent. It was Public Enemy and Nine Inch Nails, that kind of thing. But then,
Wow.
as my career evolved, I would just try and stay calmer and calmer in advance of games, and literally be listening to African lullabies and Aretha Franklin sings the blues, and just jazz, quiet jazz. You just try you kind of change and evolve. I think
Mm,
as you mature, you understand that you don't want what's called adrenaline dump. You kind of get that excitement and the adrenaline's flowing, and then all of a sudden, you can actually uh, feel less energy,
right.
pretty soon thereafter, because your body's just kind of used that excitement up.
Right. So, okay, so that's happening pre-game. Now, during the game itself, okay, take us into the huddle. Okay, you get your call, you get your play call. Okay, you do the alignment, you get the ball, snap, boom. We're in Robert Smith's helmet right now. So you see these monster men coming after you, attacking you. What's going through your mind at that moment? Are you listening to jazz? Is jazz going on in your brain, like to stay calm? What's going on?
No, I mean, at that point, you've run plays so many times, you're not thinking anymore. You're really reacting.
Mm,
You're kind of seeing color and feeling pressure from different places.
mm,
But there just isn't time for that type of conscious processing as you're playing the game. Um, you're used to seeing things happen, and I think you know the best way to prepare for situations like that is to kind of go through scenarios in your mind. What can happen. You learn what your linemen are doing, and you see what kind of angle or leverage that they have on a defender. You can feel if players at the second level are kind of moving too far uh, over the top, and give you an opportunity to cut things back. But the more you kind of have those scenarios worked out in your mind, when you get to game day, those things just kind of happen automatically.
mm.
And the less you're processing, the faster you can play, and the better your chance of success.
Got it. Wow. So it's like, well, obviously you guys have a lot of practice. There's motor memory. The plays, got it. So you're not thinking. It's just a free flowing state. Like, do you feel like you're in a flow state when you're on the field and you're trying to elude tacklers and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily characterize it that way. I
Okay.
would imagine that it could be characterized that way. You're just
Mhm.
not really thinking, right? It's just unless it's situational football. You're thinking about, okay, well, need to get a first down here or whatever the case may be, but you're just not doing a lot of thinking. Your body is processing, as you said, because of the muscle memory and motor memory.
Got it. Okay, so game's over. So what are we doing? Icing our knees? We're just gonna go home, just get some
No,
rest.
no, I mean, you generally wouldn't be icing after games,
Okay.
not right after a game,
Okay.
unless there was something that particular day, some sort of injury or unusual knock. And what usually during this, when I was injured during my career, it was usually either something catastrophic or I
Right.
was just a little bit sore. There was never like an in between where I was limping around a lot during the course of a week or feeling particularly sore, other than kind of like a background soreness that just kind of develops during the course of a season. Your body just kind of gets callous to it.
Right.
Once training camp happens and you're starting to take all these hits, you're not really, I guess, to somebody that is just thrown into the situation, you might feel it, but
Mhm.
as a player, you don't necessarily consciously process that
Okay.
soreness. Just a lot of bumps and bruises, and a couple deep gouges that you know are just part of the game.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about lifestyle as an NFLer. I just want the viewers and listeners to really have an understanding what it's like to be a guy in your position back then. So travel. Okay, you got one game a week. What's travel day like? How are you getting ready for that?
Yeah, well, it was a lot different then. This is uh, pre 9/11, so
Right.
um, they were much more lax with airport security,
Mhm.
and we could uh, you know the players could get on a bus and basically get on the tarmac and skip the airport, right? You can't do things like that anymore. Um, but you get to the airport, and
Mhm.
you've got everything packed up, and you're going to the opposing city, and even if you're in town, you're staying at a hotel anyway.
Mm,
And you take your playbook with you, and you kind of get into game mode. I would
got it.
get pretty quiet the day before a game, just kind of focusing on what we needed to do. I didn't really like having a bunch of people in town, even when family's in town. They kind of
Right.
knew, like, all right, I'm not really up to or up for a lot of conversations right now, but you just kind of get in that game mode a little bit earlier when you're uh, on a road trip,
Sure.
and you have your I would never go out in an opposing city,
Okay.
not even out to dinner really, unless
Right.
I have friends or something there.
Right.
And then just you head back to the hotel and you've got meetings that night, and curfew. Just get up and get ready to go.
Well, wow, it sounds like you really took it serious, and you were definitely, yeah, you're not one of those party types. But it's interesting. Well, one of your teammates, old teammates, I think it was the '98 Vikings, Randy Moss,
Mhm.
totally different than you, Robert. So, like, did you like? You were an observer, I guess, to like his life at the time. Was he a distraction? Was he a cool guy? Like, what was his impact on the locker room?
Well, I mean, his life away from the field, like we would go out and hang out sometimes,
Yeah.
but I wasn't around him, so I don't know what he was doing when he was, if he's not
Right.
in the locker room, I'm not with him. So, I would see him when I was out. I certainly didn't want to make it seem like I never went out. I'm just
Right.
talking about game trips.
Got it.
We would pick our nights to go out. We would go out after games. We would go out Monday night because we didn't have practice on Tuesday, and
Right.
then we would go sometimes Thursday night
Okay.
because there was a light practice on Friday. So, certainly wasn't a choir boy, but Randy was a young kid, and
Yeah.
certainly. He matured a lot over the years,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
when he came in, it was, it was more in the locker room. And I think he was a little bit louder than, most of us veterans expected from a young guy,
Right.
and mouth off to coaches and things like that. But I think he got a lot better over the years and always was a great player.
Oh, for sure. It's interesting, like just finding out the camaraderie. Like, were there cliques within the locker room? Like, how does an NFL locker room function? There's so many guys. I would figure there's different sects, like different groups of people. Like, how does it work? How does it work? Like, because in a normal working environment, yeah, maybe I work with five guys. Hey, afterwards, go to the bar. That kind of thing. Like, how does it work with you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never been in a regular office, but I guess I've been in work environments when I was younger where I think it's pretty similar.
Okay.
Um, you have uh, you have an IT department that's going to hang out together. You have a security group. You have C-suite people that are doing something completely different in sales, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
And there are some people that you're going to be closer to and more similar to, and the types of things that you want to do, just like any other office. I mean, you got 50 plus people in an office, so some of them, and they're going to be at different stages too. You're talking about guys that are 21, uh, in some cases 20, all the way up to guys in their mid 30s and late 30s that have multiple kids, right? So
Wow.
it's an office in a sense, but with a pretty diverse demographics.
Yes, for sure. All right. So, Robert, for like the guy out there who's a running back, who's got talent, he's playing US college football, he wants to get into the NFL. Like any sort of advice, like to how to handle the life, how to handle the role, what would it be?
Well, just to always work on your craft. Try and uh, develop every aspect of who you are as a player, especially now at running back. I think the more that you can do catching the football, not just catching it, but running every route in the route tree that a receiver does.
Mhm.
You look at the guys like Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, Jameer Gibbs. The young Saquon Barkley, the younger guys that are coming into the league. The most valuable running backs are the running backs who can do more things. You have to be at least a three down back, if not with the ability to actually line up as a receiver and run every route that a normal receiver could run. So, developing every aspect, every other aspect, whether it's your speed or your strength or lateral movement, along with your ability to catch the football, run every route, and of course block when you have to. So
Mm.
if you're a young player, I think the more that you can do, the more value you have.
Great advice, Robert. I think that reflects on like the modern workplace. Like the more diversified, the more skills you do have, the more likely you'll have a job somewhere or a career. So, being I guess a lot of people they'll talk about being specialists, right? Which definitely has
Yeah,
its value, but also being a Swiss Army knife is not bad too, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on the industry and
Yeah.
depends, what it is that you're trying to get out of it. But yeah, certainly, I think your versatility, especially as a player. If you're a running back, you want to be able to play multiple. You want to be able to line up in multiple places. Same with receiver. You got to learn X and Z and
Mhm.
the slot positions, and some of those guys even move back into the backfield and can have more value.
For sure. Now, Robert, before we go, I want to ask you any fun stories about your playing days? Any stories that come to mind, players, situations that still make you chuckle today?
Yeah, I guess when in 1998 uh, we had a game in Chicago and caught a screen pass, and wasn't really much of a celebration guy. Uh, After scoring a touchdown, certainly not during a play,
Hmm.
but during that play, Randy Moss happened to be running down the field alongside of me, and we high fived each other going into the end zone. And the football gods responded promptly. And I had my chin strap unbuckled, and Dave Dixon, one of our offensive linemen, our right guard from New Zealand. We called him little Kiwi, and he's like 6'5", 360 pounds, and he came over and gave me this big bear hug, and it knocked my face mask into my teeth and knocked out most of my two front teeth.
Oh man.
And so up at Soldier Field, I was like, and it's funny because a lot of this was captured like on the NFL film type footage.
Yeah.
So you can see my face mask coming down, and you can see me like leaning over, like spitting my teeth out as I'm coming off the field. And then
Oh,
the next week we had a game in Green Bay. It was a Monday night game, and we ended their loss. I don't know. They had like a 20+ game streak of home victories, and we ended up beating them on that Monday night. But I scored another touchdown, similar type play, but much shorter. And I get into the end zone, and Dave Dixon's coming over to me to congratulate me again. And again, they have, it's Monday Night Football, so there are the cameras everywhere. And I'm just, I've got my hand up, like, stop, no, 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 Dave, you
yeah.
stay over there. More celebrations with you. And everybody's like, wait a minute, why, why are you mad at Dave? I'm like, Dave knocked my teeth out next week. I'm not celebrating with him today, but yeah, a lot of great stories, fun memories, and you see those guys now 25, 26 plus years later, and it doesn't matter. Like it's like you were in the locker room the previous day. It's like you never took a day off.
Oh man, that's awesome. The memories, the relationships you cultivated back then. That's cool that whenever you see those guys, it just, makes it all warm inside, when you see these guys.
No, it's great.
That's good. Robert, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Can you let us know like how people can get in touch with you, if you don't mind?
Uh, well, I'm not trying to get a bunch of people in touch with me, so
Okay, then. Fair enough. All right,
if they,
sir. Thanks
if
again.
they can figure it out.
Not a problem. All right. Thanks again for your time.
All right.
All right. That was pretty cool. Robert Smith talking about his NFL playing days. Thanks again, sir, for being on the show. Man, running back. That's one role I could never do on a football field. I would get torpedoed. So, Robert, congrats on the career you did have. I know it was short, but it was solid, man. So again, thank you for being on the show. All right. If you like this interview, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast for much more awesome content. Until next time, take care and have a great one.